Welcome to the Inventor's Edge podcast, where insight meets innovation. Whether you're sketching your first idea or refining a finished product, you're in the right place. Our mission is to equip you with the tools, expertise, and clarity you need to succeed as an inventor, while helping you conquer fears and limiting beliefs that may be holding you back. I'm your host, Scott Putnam, founder and CEO of Inventor's Edge. Before becoming a seasoned product development coach, I was a wide-eyed inventor with a head full of ideas but no clear path forward. I know firsthand what it's like to feel stuck, uncertain, and overwhelmed. Fast forward to today, I'm a successful entrepreneur with multiple licensing deals and products on the market. I'm committed to helping inventors like you overcome obstacles, conquer fears, and transform your ideas into tangible success through proven, actionable, step-by-step strategies that deliver real results. Join us as we bring in industry pros, share expert advice, and dive deep into the world of innovation. Ready to turn your ideas into reality? Let's get started. I'm your host, Scott Putnam, and today we're diving into one of the most transformative developments in intellectual property history, how artificial intelligence is reshaping the world of patents. To break it all down, we're joined by a true expert in the field, registered patent attorney Jake Ward. Jake brings over 20 years of experience in patent law and is the founding member of Ward Law Office, LLC. His expertise spans a wide range of technical areas, including chemical, mechanical, and electrical innovations. A true Renaissance man if there ever was one. But Jake's path to becoming a leading patent attorney is really as fascinating as the work he does today. Before launching his legal career, he worked as a materials chemist for Cooper Tire and Rubber Company in Findlay, Ohio. Later, he earned a bachelor's degree of science and biochemistry from the University of Dayton, followed by his Juris Doctor degree cum laude from the University of Toledo College of Law. A true hero in this space. Beyond his law practice, Jake is really one of the good guys dedicated to educating others on intellectual property. He's an adjunct professor at the University of Toledo College of Law, where he teaches courses on patent law and patent practice. And he's the founding author of Anticipate This, a popular legal blog that offers both insightful and humorous commentary on patent and trademark law. He's also a frequent speaker at inventors clubs, technical organizations, and business incubators across the country. Where does he find the time? In today's episode, Jake and I discuss how AI is revolutionizing the patent landscape, from improving search efficiency to assisting in patent drafting, and even influencing the future of patent examination. This is so timely. But with these legal advancements come some ethical concerns. And Jake explains why human oversight is so essential in maintaining the integrity of the patenting process. If you're an inventor looking to understand how AI can enhance your intellectual property strategy, or a patent professional navigating this new era, this episode is packed with valuable insights. Let's get started. Hey, welcome to the Inventor's Edge podcast. I'm so excited to be talking with Jake Ward of Ward Law Office, registered patent attorney, all-around Renaissance man. Jake, welcome to the show.
Scott, yeah, thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
So happy to have you on. I know you are such a wealth of information. And I know over the years with patent questions, it's been nice to be able to lean on you and get questions answered. And today's topic is really timely, and I think it's something that people are really going to dig. But before we jump in, tell us just a little bit about yourself and where you're from, and anything you want to share is great.
Yeah, so like you said, Jake Ward, patent attorney extraordinaire. I've been a patent attorney now, Scott, for over 20 years. Prior to that, and this is not uncommon amongst patent attorneys, I was actually a materials scientist, a materials engineer in the tire industry. So I came from industry. I had a science and engineering background, which again is usually the norm for patent attorneys because you have to have that technical background, right, in order to practice. I founded Ward Law Office, my current firm, about 9 years ago now, and with sort of a focus on helping entrepreneurs and independent inventors, startups. That's sort of those are our people, and that's who we aim
Yeah.
to serve. And we've grown, over those 9 years from about three upwards of about 30 total people now. We're spread out over a dozen states. That little thing called the pandemic happened, and we sent everybody home, and it was working, so we decided to embrace it. But you're talking to me actually a little bit just southwest of Cleveland, Ohio today, so that's where I'm
Nice.
at the moment.
Awesome. Man, congratulations. I mean, to build your firm to that level that's incredible.
I tell people all the time, right? I mean, we enjoy working with entrepreneurs and startups, and I think a little bit of it is because we've lived it.
Yeah.
And we are living it. I mean, I figure after 5 years, we're no longer a flash in the pan. It's actually a real thing, which is
Yeah.
nice. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It is the trials and tribulations of being a startup, being an engineer, or being a new business. It is.
Oh,
It
yeah.
is. But it's fun. I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Yeah, man. I appreciate that. I think a lot of people relate to that. And it's so nice to have superheroes and good guys in this space that are doing patent law and really looking out for the inventor, being an inventor. It's such a perfect dynamic because you know what's going on in the mind of the inventor. And that's such a powerful thing too. So we
Yeah,
can
we
jump
try.
right in. AI is fascinating. It's now kind of everywhere. I think if somebody's not using it, they've at least heard of it or jumped into Chat GPT. And it's for me, I know it like blew my mind the first time I typed something in there, and it was like,
I actually tell a little bit of a story about that too. Where my wife and I, we were driving. She was driving. I was sitting in the passenger seat, and as patent attorneys sometimes will do, I was working on my laptop while we were driving to an event, and I was working on a patent application, and we also. Use AI. Where I think we've leaned into it at our firm very early on for the past couple of years, right?
mhm,
Now we don't use Chat GPT, which we can get into that. Everything we use is siloed off and sort of self-contained. But I tell the story of the first time I ever actually used this one tool. I was using it to help like draft like a background of a patent application, and it was like magic to me. And I actually, involuntarily just sort of exclaimed, like, oh my,
yeah,
like I cannot believe what I was seeing. It just shocked me. And it is, yeah. You and I were talking earlier. We are sort of living in a moment right now. This technology is just so amazing, and there's so many just new and interesting uses that people haven't even considered yet, really, with it.
yeah, yeah. It's like it's evolving under our feet by the second. And
Yeah,
I think there's
yeah,
a lot of conversations surrounding it, and that's the essence of our topic today. And I want to jump right into some questions for you, and
yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
curious about how patent attorneys are currently using these tools to really assist with prior art searches. Is
Yeah,
that
no, I'm happy to field the questions. I have opinions, and I will say
good?
I'm not always right, and I'm not going to always claim to be right. But yeah, I think we've got lots of experience at our firm with these tools because we've been trying them for the past few years in many different areas, not just generative AI for application drafting and all that, but searching, which is what you just asked about. One or two particular search tools that I really like to use that we've adopted at our firm that it really is amazing. You can take natural language and just type in what I would consider just a very concise, brief description and actually get very high quality results. One thing, and I don't know if this will get mentioned in my bio or not, but when I'm not lawyering, I also teach patent law and patent practice at the law school level at a local college of law. And
Hmm.
I actually incorporated this year AI into my class for the very first time, and I actually did a trial where I taught the class how to do a search the old-fashioned way, old-fashioned with the air
Hmm.
quotes, where you sort of break down the invention and you create some search strings, and you get a little fancy with maybe is this term within five of that term, you use your booleans and everything, and then I said, all right. We ran that search, and then I said, okay, well, let's use this. And we brought in one of our AI tools, and I just threw in basically a short paragraph that almost word for word came from the inventor. And the two lists were nearly identical in terms of the search
Wow.
results. And in fact, I was saying that about the only difference was maybe the rankings. And that's one thing, like a cautionary note. When we use AI tools for searching it in our firm, one thing we've noticed is it may find some relevant results, but the robot doesn't always know what is the best out of that subset. And so you may find your most relevant result if you sort of scan down and, maybe it's 10th on the list or something. But the point is instead of spending an hour creating a really well-reasoned search string, it's taken it into like a 5-minute exercise. And
Yeah.
you still have to review everything, but it's so much more efficient.
Man, is that something
Yeah.
I'm always looking at, kind of looking out for the average inventor. And is that something, if the average inventor wants to do their own patent searching, is that something you recommend? Or do you still need some patent attorney
Yeah.
experience to
No, I
steer?
mean, I always recommend to all of our inventors that they do their own searching. I mean, an inventor is almost always going to be a better judge and an expert as to what they've invented than, much
Mhm.
better than any attorney is ever going to be. And there's
Yeah,
and this is even pre-AI, right? I mean, we've had this thing called the internet now for a little
right.
while, and it's the
Yeah, I've heard of
whole of
that.
human knowledge, right at our fingertips. And patents, by their very nature, are public documents, and so everything's out there and findable. And so I've always recommended that inventors do their own searching before they even really come and talk to the patent attorney. Now, it does come down to like a gut check. How comfortable are you knowing what you know at that point? And there is value to sometimes using professionals to comb through results and all that. I would say a lot of the tools that I was just talking about, the AI-based tools, are still pay to play. So we're paying for them, and some of these are pretty expensive still. But I
Yeah.
think it's just a matter of time. The cost for all these is just going to be driven way down, and eventually, what we're paying literally hundreds or thousands of dollars for to have access to as professionals, it'll be freely available on the internet at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like the evolution of all this is kind of moving in that direction. What about, ethical considerations? I mean, what do you keep in mind when you're using some of these tools for drafting and even prosecution?
Yeah, it's so important that and again, I train not only our attorneys but law students on this, and they will say Jake Ward says the same 25 things over and over again. One of the 25 things I say over and over again here, Scott, is you can't trust the robot. Never ever trust the robot. It's a good tool, right? But it's a tool, and it needs to be treated as such with that level of respect. It's not a crutch, and it will never be an excuse for an attorney, to say, well, that's what the AI wrote. Well, no, that's malpractice. I mean, you need a vouch as an attorney for every single word you write. It has to be quite intentional. And if you use a tool to help get you there, whether it be a word processor or the next gen, generative AI, large language model tool, it still has to be something that you as the professional vouch for and you can stand behind and
Mhm.
understand and explain why you said it the way you did. So that to me right there, that really gets to the heart of the ethical component.
Mhm.
When attorneys or really any professionals, this is not just the law that's being affected by AI. Any professional that uses tools like this to create or generate work product that they're going to be passing off as theirs, they need to stand behind it and vouch for it.
Yeah. Yeah. You're still putting your stamp on it or your signature, like
That's right.
it's,
That's right.
yeah.
To me, a lot of the tool, the value behind the tool is it gets you to that point where you're editing more quickly, right? So it's not like
Mhm.
even just 2, 3, 4 years ago, where I might spend a day, just banging along on my keyboard, getting it out of my mind and onto the computer screen.
Mhm.
Um, instead of a day doing that, it may be an hour now. And then I'm into the editing phase at that point, and I can start thinking critically, helping the inventor to try to protect themselves. Well, maybe you embellish here, or build up the argument there, right? So it
Yeah.
gets you to that important phase, I think, of patent drafting sooner.
Yeah. It's such an interesting topic when you're talking about patent examination and attorneys. How might, let's call it AI assisted patent examination, change the way attorneys really approach some claim drafting and responses to
Yeah,
office actions? Is it like,
yeah,
okay, I'm going to
it
charge you $500, but it took me 30 seconds. Here you go, done. I
yeah,
know that's
it
not
is.
you, but it's like,
Well, no, I mean, you talk about examination as part of this, right? And That right there is such a hot button topic
Yeah.
right now. It doesn't matter what your politics are. I mean, we all know that, government is being transformed, and that includes the Patent and Trademark Office. There is a lot of discussion happening right now about how to incorporate, these tools into the patent system moving forward. And it's happening. No one knows
Hmm.
to what extent it's going to happen and how fast. I generally seem to think that there's pressure right now to make it happen very fast. But you were saying it earlier when we were sort of chatting beforehand that it's like a day by day sort of process that we're just seeing this all happen in real time. So I think the AI tools will make a patent examination more effective.
Hmm.
I think one of the things that computers just in general are really good at is just crunching through lots of information very quickly. I mean, that is the value to having a computer, and then AI is just one further evolution, in that process. When it comes to the final decisions, I'm hoping, the patent office still keeps a human component to all of this. I really, yeah. I mean, I wrote an article here, a couple week or two ago, and on our blog, and talking about, well, there is some discussion, and I don't think this is going to happen, but there's been some discussion of, well, maybe you go to a registration system, right, where it's just you put it in, and then the robot crunches it and says, yes, you got a patent.
Hmm.
And I really don't, I really dislike that for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
To me, one of the main ones is your it shouldn't be easy to obtain a
Hmm.
patent. Patents are
Right.
valuable, right? And if all you
Yeah.
have to do is pay a fee and get a rubber stamp, well, anybody could do it, and it would drive the value of all of them down. It's that scarcity principle, right?
Yeah.
So there should be some barrier, right, where you actually have to prove you actually have come up with something. And I like the idea of having a human being there, as being that final arbiter. But can they use AI tools to help them make that decision? Absolutely. And I think that's what you're going to be seeing. It's happening already. I think it's just going to be happening more and more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting. When you think about the patent office itself, I mean, how do they ensure transparency when you're talking AI tools, that are used in the examination process? And what does that look like?
I mean, I think they're trying to figure that out right now, Scott.
Yeah.
I don't have any keen insights into what's happening behind closed doors at the patent office these days.
Right.
I do follow like the Examiner Reddits and all of that, and so
Hmm.
you hear a little bit of the rumblings going on,
Yeah.
inside the office. But I suspect it's not going to too far afield from what they currently do. Like currently, if you
Hmm.
file a patent application and your patent examiner, I sort of always liken them to a judge, right? They're a little bit of like a judge over your case.
Yeah.
If the
Yeah.
patent examiner, does make this judgment call and they think, well, this set of documents here, these patents or publications, I think this is most relevant, they will actually provide that. It's part of the official action, the office action that you receive, and you'll
Hmm.
see what the examiner was looking at, even though they might only rely on two or three of them in making their office action rejections. And I suspect you're going to see that too. It may be maybe it gets to the point where if there is an AI pre-examination that happens, that is what's going to be appended to the office action, right? So
Hmm.
it's just an additional sort of listing of, well, here's what we thought was most relevant. And then the human being made that final judgment
Yeah.
call to say, this
Right.
is what we're going to be basing our decisions on.
I think that's such an important thing. If there is that transparency and people know, okay, this was AI generated and this is what they use, but then I can see where the person took the information and then really used it to create their answer, not some auto generated,
Yeah.
you know?
To me, I mean, you hit upon it earlier, Scott. I think the risk in all of this, right, is you're going to have some people that want to use it as a crutch instead of a tool.
Hmm.
And I even say that about the patent office currently. The examining core is huge, and rightfully so, because there's so many different types of technology out there. And roughly, I think almost 10,000, I think, is the current number. And it's a bell curve, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to get some examiners that are excellent. Most of the examiners are very good. And it's just like any other business, there's going to be some examiners that maybe aren't as good. It's just natural, it's Gaussian curve. And, you might expect maybe some of those would use it more as a crutch as opposed to to the tool. which I think it needs to be if it's going to be used effectively. Well, that's the role then of management,
Yeah.
at the government agency, to try to see that and weed that out when it happens.
Yeah. I love that you're on Reddit and staying, ear to the ground with things that are happening at the USPTO right now. And I know there's a lot going on. Circling back though to patent attorneys themselves, I mean, what are some, I guess, skills that modern day attorneys should kind of develop to really effectively use the AI tools? And
Yeah,
also
yeah,
really to maintain those high quality legal services so it doesn't become so watered down and whatever an average Joe is doing his thing. And
yeah,
you know what I mean? I
yeah.
guess.
I'm a fairly strong proponent of again, another saying that Jake says,
Yeah.
25. There's 23 on the list,
Great.
that attorneys, and this applies again, I think, to all professionals that are in a knowledge sort of economy, knowledge-based economy, but attorneys especially, we're not going to be replaced by computers, by robots. What's going to happen is that the attorneys who use the AI, they're going to replace the attorneys who don't, right? So it's an
Mhm.
evolution where at some point in time, and I sometimes will do this, I'll hold up my yellow notebook paper and I'll say at
Mhm.
some point in time in history, patent attorneys were writing patent applications on yellow notebook paper. That was the standard. And then someone invented the word processor. And within 5 years, people who were using word processors, they were running circles around those attorneys who were still doing it and on paper, and those attorneys weren't practicing much longer. It's going to be the same thing that we're seeing here. I think attorneys who
Mhm.
sort of lean into it, that learn how to use it effectively and responsibly, that is going to become the standard.
Mm.
And those who
Yeah.
don't are going to be retired and sort of fall by the wayside. I mean, you raised the point earlier too of like, well, it doesn't get to the point that, you can write a patent application in 30 seconds, but you're still charging what you did before. I don't think that that's the case. I mean, first of all, there's a cost associated with using the robots that you have to then account for, right? It's just like, going to a home builder, right? You know, yeah, just because they're using, saws and power tools and all of that, it doesn't mean that, you're going to get your house built for pennies because they've got high-end tools. No, I mean, there's a cost associated with that. Yeah, they might be able to get it done more efficiently and faster, but there's still
Yeah.
going to be that cost. And it's the same thing, I think, with other areas, and the law, when it comes to the use of AI. It's going to have to be those who use it. There's going to be the cost associated with that. It's not just the time, but the cost associated with the actual tool itself that's being used.
Right.
I think you were asking too about like what are those attorneys going to have to do? We all are going to have to become prompt engineers to a certain extent, and
Yeah. Wondered about that.
learn how to ask the questions right. I can tell you, for example, like one of the ways I have found it to be very effective is I have a patent application I've written. And
Mhm.
historically, like I would go through when I'm editing, I might identify a particular feature of the invention that I want to embellish. I want to sort of build up that particular feature. And then what I would
Mhm.
do is I would go to a resource. It might be a scientific text that I have, or it could be the internet. Then I'm just splashing around like what would be alternative materials, right, that could be used for this. I can just go to the AI and put that prompt in and say, hey, following this particular paragraph, is there a unique, can you explain or expand or expound upon this feature? And it will provide some, certain examples. Now, again, you have to check it. Hallucinations will happen when there's too much space between the nodes of the model. That's when things will be made up.
Right.
It does make for a more efficient, I think, sort of growth and expanding of some of that description that patent attorneys would normally just do through research.
Yeah, it's so interesting. So, bottom lining this, patent attorneys that use AI, use it the right way, use it as a tool, will in effect create a better product for their clients than the ones that are still doing it old school.
Yeah. Or, I think that's the hope, right? Is that we're going
Yeah.
to be providing a higher quality work product in
Mhm.
even less time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the very least, the same quality of work product, but much more efficiently. And
Right.
and I will also say, too, and going back to the prompt question, I think it's going to be a very long time before you could sit just any inventor down in front of a computer terminal and say, put your invention in there, and then a patent application spits out. That's not how it
Hmm.
works, and that's not actually how attorneys and professionals will use it. I mean, I still write a patent application in a very methodical way, the same way I was trained over 20 years ago, and I sort of build it up piece by piece. I'm just using the tools to help me build it at this.
I wondered about that. I think people listening are probably like, man, I'd love to sit down, put a description or even upload an image of my sketch and, all the information about my product, push a button, 30 seconds later I have this killer patent application drafted, ready to go, all the, references. I wonder though, I mean, maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here, but at the rate that AI is moving at the moment, do you think at some point that could be a possibility and it would be a really high quality product?
Yeah, I think so eventually, but I think it's going to be a really long time. And that's not just Jake Ward, saying this. I mean,
Yeah.
about one out of every three patent applications that we write anymore have AI as part of them. It's just
Yeah.
finding its way into so many different inventions and technologies, and that happens. In the past, I've been doing this long enough that every few years there's some sort of new sea-level change in
Hmm.
technology. For example, just a couple years ago, it was like blockchain, right? And
Hmm.
everything was blockchain.
Yeah.
Now everything's AI. In a couple years, it's going to be humanoid robots or something like that, right? But because of that, I feel like I have a little bit more knowledge that I've gained, perhaps compared to others, because the inventors I'm working with, who are the real experts in these AI technologies, I've heard a number of them explain to me that modern AI, that technology has sort of almost reached a little bit of a plateau. Like it's still getting better, but it's
Mm.
not like this huge improvement that we saw over the past couple of years. And in fact, to get even a fraction of a percentage better, fewer hallucinations and all of that, it's a
Mhm.
significant amount of energy and time expenditure required to get that. So I think
Yeah.
you're going to start seeing fractional improvements, but I think they've sort of have reached like this particular area of usability now where it's
Yeah.
probably not going to be that apparent to most people, when they
Sure.
get that fraction of a percent improvement.
Right. You hit critical mass and then it's not these
Yeah.
big quantum leaps
Yeah.
up. It's yeah.
Well, and again, another technology could come down any day now, right? And you talk about quantum computers and things like that. Right? No,
Yeah.
maybe, but yeah, I sort of buy into that thought process that I think it's sort of it's where it's at right now. It's going to be around there for a little while, and
Yeah.
and so you can't just sit anybody just down at a computer and just say type in your invention. That's
Yeah.
part of the art form, I think, in being a good patent attorney is working closely with the inventor to understand what it is they've done and sort of put it into that framework that is necessary. I mean, that's one
Mhm.
of the fun parts of being a patent attorney, right? You're left and right brained, and
Yeah.
you're taking the technical, translating it into the legal, and
Yeah.
sometimes the technical is not easy to explain, even by the inventor. They know what they did, right? But
Yeah.
they took hit, especially with very complex inventions. Sometimes it's not quite as easy as you might think.
Yeah. I think about that all the time. That's when I'm coaching inventors, and that are just starting out, I have to really just beg and plead them, let's start with the most simple product you have. There are so many reasons for that, from patent protection, prototyping, everything. And yeah, there's really something to be said for keeping it simple and
Hmm.
really straightforward. I think patent law is complex, and I think a lot of inventors that I've worked with, when you start talking about that, they get a little bit nervous, about jumping into that
Yeah,
world. And it's like, nah, I'll just want my patent attorney to do it. And the patent attorney's like, I need you to be the expert with your
it's
product, and you need to dig in too.
it is always a collaboration, right? I said
Yeah.
earlier, here in the interview that the inventor is always going to be more of an expert. The attorney is there to help them to position the invention in a way that is likely to be successful to sort of navigate through that process. Which, as I said earlier, I think inherently it has to be difficult, or at least some level of difficulty. I
Yeah.
know many inventors I've talked with. I mean, I know they just want to file an application, and then the next day their patent is granted. I get it. I get it. But if, on the flip side, I think if they really thought critically about it, they would recognize that, hey, if it was that easy, there wouldn't be very much value to what it is that we're getting. And
Yeah.
And I've been through it. I mean, I filed my own patent application on an AI-based invention actually just last week. So I mean, I'm an inventor as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, do I wish that I could get through the patent process quickly? And yeah, but I also understand it will have more value if it's vetted and it goes through this process, and ultimately, I'm going to have a much stronger asset that I'll be able to rely on, whether I'm
Mhm.
licensing or venturing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the goal, I think, for everybody, really to have an asset that has value. You've put your blood, sweat, tears, and checkbook into this thing, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I need it to have some value. Thinking about that with I guess what are some safeguards that might need to be in place just so there isn't this over reliance on these AI tools?
I mean, I think that's where maybe some regulation is going to have to come in, right? And there are already regulations at state level and that sort of do provide and inform on how to use AI responsibly. I think it's going to again have to be something where ultimately the human being is going to have to vouch for it. Going back to what we were saying earlier, I mean, you need to ultimately say, even though this used some high end tools, we use some power tools to build this build this machine. It still needs to be the high level of craftsmanship, just as high level as if it was hand built, right, with very simple mechanical tools. The craftsman has to stand behind their work product. And I think that's what it's going to ultimately have to be. And there's going to be, I tell you what, Scott, there's going to be so much litigation relating to
Mhm.
AI. I mean, there already is. Every other day it looks like I'm reading another article where, especially in litigation, some lawyer used an AI to help write a brief, and it hallucinated some case that didn't actually exist. And,
Mm,
and so that's going to
yeah,
continue to happen. And I think, the bar is going to be definitely focused on it, and the law is going to probably, but not probably, it will adapt
yeah,
to help control that and create those guide rails so that it's used responsibly.
yeah, absolutely. At the core of all this, you can't replace what humans can do with any machine.
No.
We've all seen Terminator, we know we know what that looks like.
Yeah.
Skynet, I don't think we're there yet. I know a lot
No,
of
no,
people
I don't
talk about that. Like,
I
wait,
don't
how
think
are we
so.
getting close?
I don't think so. I mean, and sort of a different way of looking at it too, with because there are proponents out there of a Skynet type system where
Yeah,
you just the inventor files, and like I said, instantaneous patent.
yeah.
And you know some of the logic, and I understand it, some of the logic is that, well, so few patents actually get litigated, that really, do we have to do this rigorous examination like we do for all 100% of them? I think there's a problem with that logic, though. People, most inventors I know, they don't receive a patent or seek a patent so that they can go spend hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars at court. You don't get a
Mhm.
patent and say, yes, all right, here's my legal bill. What you do is
Right.
you get a patent so that you have leverage, because no one wants to get into a costly legal battle. This is why so few patents are actually litigated. Most times they are an asset used to secure investment, to help ward off competition.
Mhm.
They're not going to see the light of a courtroom in the vast majority of instances, but it doesn't mean they didn't have value. It just means that they were being
Right.
used in a different way, that these people who would be proponents of a more of a registration type system would just simply point to, well, so if you are litigated, we shouldn't do a full examination on all of them. That's missing the point, I think. And the other part of it too, is, if you're looking at the Skynet sort of principle, right?
Mhm.
There is also a certain amount of, and I'm going to be politically correct when I say this, feces in, feces out,
Yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean, it is a situation where, if you are not involving the human beings who are putting the critical level of thought into what is the business end of this, what is the interest of the inventor, how might we imagine someone might try to design around this, and sort of building out all of this. If you don't have all of that, what you're going to get out of the system is probably going to be equally as poor. right? And even if a robot is looking at it and handling it. So
Right.
as you can imagine from this discussion, I'm a huge proponent of keeping human beings being part of this, because ultimately that's why we're getting patents. It's for human beings. It's not for robots, right?
Right. Yeah. And not inventing products to make robots' lives better.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. What about, and I know we're getting a little short on time here, but a
No,
couple.
I'm happy to wax philosophic here. You know, as you can tell, this is a topic that I'm keenly interested in. Yeah.
It's great. I'm just curious about other patent offices around the world. I mean, I'm assuming this is not just a
Yeah.
USA. I mean,
No,
it's
it's
everywhere,
not.
right?
It's not. Yeah.
How are other countries approaching AI in terms of like examination process and patent offices using it? Is it the same, or do you know?
You know, I don't have a ton of insight into that, but I can tell you that my expectation would be any well-developed patent office
Hmm.
is, you know, most almost certainly looking at these tools right now and has been looking at
Mm-hmm.
these tools. Some patent systems are different from ours. I mean, there are systems out there that are much more registration based and they don't have a rigorous examination, and you know, generally those are also seen as being less valuable because of that. And maybe they will adopt a pure Skynet, you know, type system where it just give it and the robot in 10 seconds issues your patent. But again, I don't really have any insight. I have not a ton of insight even into the United States, other than what I hear and what I get from talking with some examiners and things like that occasionally, people like
Sure.
that that are in positions. But you know, I would be shocked if again the major patent offices weren't already using these tools or at least investigating them.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, with that in mind, what are some best practices in terms of documenting AI tool usage, especially in patent prosecution? I mean, this isn't like what's happening now, but if you could suggest, hey, here's
Yeah.
what we need to do.
I'm glad you brought that one up because I wanted to make sure we got that in here. You heard me probably say at the beginning, like, you know, the tools that I know our firm has used. We're very careful about the tools, where the servers are located. We got to be
Yeah.
concerned with export control laws. We also don't
Hmm.
want to have any of our AI systems using feeding out into a general ecosystem or feeding back in, which is actually, I think, one of the problems, I understand it anyways, with certain systems like a chat GPT system. It is not private. You know, you put something in there, it's going to be used to train. And so my advice would be, you know, if you're an inventor and you're trying to use these tools, you got to be cognizant. You got to be aware of that. There's still that, you know, public disclosure concern that we have with inventing, that it could affect your rights. You know, as
Yeah.
far as I'm concerned, it's probably you know, subject for or ripe for further inventing. Someone's going to invent at some point a way of being able to detect, like, when did that concept get plugged into ChatGPT,
Yeah.
right? And now all of a sudden you're going to have potential prior art issues, that are
Hmm.
going to be something you're going to have to deal with. My advice would be, there are private AI systems, things that are siloed off. Obviously, you can go to a professional and who's careful about this, and they can make sure that they use those as well. But you just need
Yeah.
to be careful, not to tip your hand, even to a robot, right, like ChatGPT, because it could create problems for you in the future.
That is such an interesting, that could be a whole separate podcast just on that topic because
I mean, yeah,
ChatGPT is just collecting
it is.
information and
It
it's
is.
going into databases and computers. Like,
Where is
is
it
that
going?
yeah, who knows? Ah, they're
You don't
watching us.
know. You don't know. It's training. It's training. And you know,
Yeah.
but as again, you know, we're very good as patent attorneys about always talking about, be careful of the public disclosure and sale and offer for
Yeah.
sale because it can affect rights. And I think with the advent of some of these AI systems which are open,
Right.
you have a concern there that you have
Yeah.
to at least think about if you're going to try to use that to help with either your inventing or in your, you know, patenting process.
Yeah. I that's the I guess that's the $1 million question. If I plug my idea into Chat GPT, is that public disclosure?
Yeah. Yeah,
because it's using
that
it and it's
is a question.
disseminating it to the public in some way or fashion
Yeah.
based on its learning algorithms and things. But maybe we're not quite there yet. But your advice to be careful is spot on, man.
Yeah, I think that's maybe be judicious, right, about
Yeah,
it, what you share, and that's just that that's just as good advice, no matter whether we're in an AI based environment or not. But
right.
yeah, it's especially something to be careful about again in any open AI type platforms.
Yeah, good advice. I love it, man. With all of this in mind, any final thoughts for Inventor's Edge listeners that are trying to figure all this stuff out with AI and patenting?
I mean, I would not be afraid of it. First of all, I mean, I do think it is here. It's here to stay. I think as a tool, it could make your life a whole lot more efficient. Your inventing life a whole lot more efficient. Your product development life a whole lot more efficient if you use it correctly. Go back to what I was saying at the very beginning. One of my sayings: don't trust the robot, right? But you can use it as a tool to help you get where you want to get. And I think if the early adopters of this, they will be the ones who are successful. The folks who don't lean into it, who are maybe a little bit conservative in adopting this new tool,
Yeah,
they're going to be going the way of the typewriter, right? It could have been the best typewriter in the world, but the minute the word
yeah,
processor came out, well,
right.
all
Yeah,
right, yeah, and that's what we're seeing here. That's what we're seeing here. So yeah,
yeah. And I'd imagine there are some people that, you know, a certain percentage of patent attorneys as well as other professionals are like, no, 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 no. That just scares the hell out of me, or I just have zero interest in doing that. But I think you're probably right. You either kind of get on board or you sort of get left behind, right?
yeah, and there's so many different ways of using it. Like we were saying earlier, searching, generative, text generative sort of tools. I think one of the things we're going to start seeing is more and more, and you get a little bit of it already with like AI platforms like Midjourney, but imagery, the
Hmm.
generation of patent drawings, I think is something that we're going to be start seeing more and more of. Already, some of it's there. It's fairly common anymore to see some of these systems create like box diagrams and flowcharts automatically based on text prompts. The you're going to start seeing more than just that, where you can type in, I want my invention, which is a tennis shoe with 10 springs on the bottom of the sole. That's what you're going to get. That's what it's going to
Yeah,
actually generate, and you might be able to use that as a patent drawing. So we're going to continue to see it be used more and more. Even in an examination, like you were saying earlier. I think
yeah,
it's here to stay, and we're going to have to adapt to it, right? If we're going to be continue to be successful in inventing and
yeah,
at the patent office.
yeah, for sure. Well spoken, my friend. How can people get in touch with you if they either want some help with a patent search or patent, or if
Yeah,
they have AI related questions, or what's the best way for
yeah.
people to get in touch?
Well, probably go to our website. It's wardpatent.com. So WARDPATENT.com. We also have a Calendly web link. You can self-schedule. So if it's wardpatent.com slash patently good ideas, patently hyphen good hyphen ideas, that is our sort of educational site. And again, I do regular speaking events throughout the year, underneath the Patently Good Ideas banner about, inventor education and entrepreneurship. We don't charge for basic phone calls, initial consults, precisely because the patent process is so complicated. Even when we onboard clients, I tell them, just give me a call. I'd rather have you call me rather than get all worried about where you're at in the patent process, because it is so complicated. It's fairly straightforward. The language is unnecessarily scary. Rejection and final. Well, no, nothing's ever final at the
Yeah,
patent office, not unless you, as the inventor, say it is. And rejection's a really harsh term too.
yeah.
I actually had a conversation. I was at a roundtable just a couple of years ago with was invited in with the director of the patent office, and that was one of my suggestions. I said, I think we should just throw out the whole lexicon, just throw out the whole book
Hmm.
of what we call these things, right? And
Yeah,
come up with some better terms. But yeah, in any case, like I said, that's how you get a hold of us, and we don't ever charge for basic consults and questions.
That's great to know. Yeah, the language in those office actions are like, "Oh, I was rejected." It's like, "No, that's kind of the beginning of the
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah, yeah,
Don't let it freak you out."
and first time, inventors and patent applicants, when they see that, if they have not been prepped for it, it's really just demoralizing when they see it the first
Yeah,
time, right? Because they just don't understand. But then you explain, all right, this is how the process works. It's expected. You're almost always going to get rejected. And this is what it really means. It just means that they've cited something that they think is similar. Well, now it's your right, and it's our role as your patent attorney to come in and explain to them why they're wrong, and to maybe further define and make sure that that is clearly your invention is clearly different and therefore patentable from whatever you're
right.
able to find. It's just part of the process.
Yeah, that's so great to know. I hope people really, really latch on to that because I know when I was new starting out, it was just like, what is
Yeah,
this? It was
yeah,
rejected. Right? And then I had some, talking with you and some other people. It's like, no, no, no. Nobody's patent whizzes right through the first time, right? There's always some
yeah.
back and forth. I mean, I'm sure there's some cases.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
again, if you step into the process expecting that, and after your first time or first or second time through, you do know to expect it, it just becomes just understood, and a lot of that concern, that worry, sort of melts away. You're like, why did they cite that? That doesn't make any sense. And we're like, yeah, we agree with you. Let's do X, Y, Z, and we'll move your case forward.
yeah,
But that's how
beautiful.
that works.
That's perfect. On that note, Jake, you are one of the really good guys in this space, one of the
I
superstars.
appreciate
It's
it,
very
Scott.
generous. Yeah, to offer free consultations if somebody has questions or they want to bounce ideas around. We'll have your links down below when this is
Perfect.
posted on social. So those of you that are listening or watching us on YouTube, please subscribe, smash the like button, and reach out to Jake. He's a superstar in this space. So I really appreciate you being on, Jake. Thanks so
I
much.
appreciate you having me, Scott. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Inventor's Edge podcast. I'm your host, Scott Putnam, and if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a review, and please share it with fellow inventors. Your next breakthrough could be just around the corner. For more tools, tips, and resources, visit us at inventors-edge.com. Until next time, invent with purpose, innovate with passion, and bring your ideas to life.